Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of pickled mushrooms. Whether you're a seasoned pickler or just starting out, this video will equip you with the knowledge you need to store your pickled mushrooms safely and effectively. We'll be exploring two main methods: storing under a lid and storing out in the open. Each method has its own set of advantages and disadvantages, and we'll be discussing both in detail. So, grab your favorite jar of pickled mushrooms, get comfortable, and let's learn all about the best ways to keep them fresh and delicious. Choose the right jar. Opt for a glass jar with a tight-fitting lid. Pack the mushrooms tightly. Fill the jar, leaving just enough space for the brine. Add the brine. Use a simple brine recipe of water, salt, and vinegar. Seal the jar tightly. Ensure the lid is securely closed to prevent air from entering. Store in a cool, dark place. A pantry or cellar is ideal. Check the mushrooms regularly. Look for signs of spoilage, such as mold or discoloration. Refrigerate immediately. Open jars of pickled mushrooms should be stored in the refrigerator. Transfer to a smaller container. If possible, move the mushrooms to a smaller container to minimize air exposure. Use a clean utensil. Always use a clean spoon or fork when scooping out mushrooms to avoid contamination. Consume within a week. Open jars of pickled mushrooms are best enjoyed within a week for optimal flavor and quality. Additional tips: for longer storage, you can process the pickled mushrooms in a boiling water bath. If you notice any signs of spoilage, discard the entire jar of mushrooms. When in doubt, err on the side of caution and throw away the mushrooms. The most common way to store pickled mushrooms is under an iron lid. This method is simple and effective, and it can keep your mushrooms fresh for up to a year. To store your mushrooms under an iron lid, simply pack them tightly into a clean jar and cover them with the brine. Then, seal the jar with an iron lid and store it in a cool, dark place. Industrial preparations of pickled mushrooms are typically stored in sealed jars or cans. These products can be stored at room temperature for up to 2 years. However, once the jar or can is opened, the mushrooms should be refrigerated and consumed within a few days. Pickled mushrooms can also be stored in the freezer. This method is best for mushrooms that you plan to use within a few months. To freeze your mushrooms, simply pack them into a freezer-safe container and seal it tightly. Then, place the container in the freezer. When you are ready to use your mushrooms, thaw them in the refrigerator overnight. There are a few other ways to store pickled mushrooms, but these methods are not as common. One method is to store the mushrooms in a crock. This method is similar to storing them under an iron lid, but it requires a special crock and lid. Another method is to store the mushrooms in a vacuum-sealed bag. This method is effective, but it can be expensive. Expired produce can be dangerous to consume. It can contain harmful bacteria that can cause food poisoning. Symptoms of food poisoning include nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and abdominal cramps. In severe cases, food poisoning can lead to dehydration and hospitalization. If you think you have eaten expired produce, it is important to see a doctor immediately. Pickled mushrooms are a delicious and versatile food that can be enjoyed in many different ways. By following the tips above, you can store your pickled mushrooms safely and enjoy them for months to come.